You're listening to Bedroom Beethovens, where notable music makers break down stories accompanied by songs and melodies documenting growth through their 10,000-hour journey. And me? Well, my name is Cello, your host.
I am a bedroom Beethoven.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 147 of the podcast. My guest this week is...
My name is Dixon Hill. I make beats, I make albums, I make visuals. I try to do a lot of stuff.
And what did you have for breakfast today?
Ooh, that's a good question. It was kind of a Spartan breakfast. It's just some almond milk and some kashi cereal. I'm trying to get that fiber.
Solid and reliable. If he march ahead, he's praying that he inspired you. When the leaves falling and changing, that's when he'll find you. But yo, he got a standalone complex. He turned into a ghost in his shell without no live sex. But yo, he got a standalone complex. He turned into a ghost in his shell without no live sex. After that, he came to the all-natural, the center of your being. No direction in season, never in a rush, but everything is completed. Only the planet know the secrets. You check it, he didn't throw caution to the wind. Instead, he used it to build stability from within.
Dixon Hill returns after saving lives and remote AirBnB stays and dropping some musical gems. We meet back for a melding of the minds to talk about the Book of Changes and navigate this scene, the music scene. It's not for the faint of heart. We almost go track by track, how some songs brought him to tears, how he sang the hook on one track, and how the process has left him fulfilled. Don't rely on website write-ups to tell you about the project. Hear it from the man himself. And if you like the show and want to help support it, please visit patreon.com/bedroombeethovens, and you can give $1 or $2 and it helps out the show. And this podcast is widely available wherever it is you get podcasts or content of this nature. I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving as we move into the holiday season. My only wish is if you're listening to this, you're staying safe. Life isn't so bad, right? Cheer up. After all, it could be worse. Get your booster shot, get your kids vaccinated. Oh, and before you listen to this, make sure you have a good breakfast. You're only going to do a disservice to yourself. Dixon Hill, Bedroom Beethovens, round 2. Let's go. On album release days, though, let's say tomorrow, do you go big on breakfast?
I would like to. In Vegas, there's a lot of really great breakfast spots that do like Polynesian and Hawaiian inspired dishes. And there's this very wonderful place called Baby Stacks that does a garlic rice omelet. And I think I have my eyes on it.
I think you deserve it.
I think I do too.
One of the biggest compliments I actually got on this podcast was your episode. Someone told us that we had a great conversation and they could listen to the two of us talk all day.
Oh,
I've never gotten that. I guess we had like an organic, natural flow to our conversation. Maybe I'm a good interviewer, or maybe you're just easy to talk to.
maybe it's a bit of both. I mean, I could talk to you all day, so maybe there's something to it.
Well, we actually didn't talk about this last time, but you meditate on the daily, right? I wanted to know what that process was like.
Yeah, it could be a very purposeful practice where I'm actually sitting down with the lights off and disconnecting. Or it could just be little micro moments throughout the day where I'm just checking in with myself, just trying to sift through some of the feelings and just trying to find a little bit of balance and calm. Because a lot of time you can get caught up in work, future expectations, and it's just really easy to let that snowball. I feel like checking in is a form of meditation in itself. But then sometimes, I'm lighting candles and I'm sitting down and I'm really going for it. I'll be in there for like an hour, just trying to find it.
If you have to drive 600 miles in your van, are you able to do it while driving?
Well, highway hypnosis is definitely a form of meditation.
Not the good kind.
It's such a beautiful thing. Well, I mean, if you're driving in the desert and you don't have to worry about other cars, like you're the only car on the road, it's like 3 a.m, it's actually a beautiful thing. And then sunrise in the desert too, just looking at the colors change on the mountains, having that space is really a great feeling. And then after about hour 4, I lose my break with the everything, and my ass starts to hurt, and I got to go to Buc-ee's and get a soda.
Oh, dude, I love Buc-ee's. People who are not in the South, I don't think they know what Buc-ee's is.
So every time I stop at, I love Buc-ee's, but every time I stop at Buc-ee's, I have a couple of Buc-ee's shirts, and no matter where I am in the country, if I'm wearing my Buc-ee's shirt, I get love. Like there is somebody, I was in a diner one time and like 6 women were like, Buc-ee's, Buc-ee's. Like it happens every time. And I love it. I feel like a celebrity. I wish people did that when I was wearing my Dixon Hill shirts, but we'll get there.
I went to Buc-ee's with my family like 3 weeks ago, and like we just got like brisket tacos and drinks, and it was like $80. But I don't care, man. We're at Buc-ee's.
I'm a Buc-ee's family man for sure.
I think Tom Green kind of stole your whole shtick. I don't know if you caught wind of that, but he'll get in a van with his dog named Charlie, and he will go across country, and he'll stop at random places like maybe a ghost town or a mine or an old diner and record it, and he makes content out of that and monetizes it. And I was like, you know what?
Ooh.
Dixon did that first.
So that's Tom Green, like my bum is on your lips, Tom Green?
Yeah, so now he sold his house in LA. And he is like just ramping up his YouTube channel, and that's basically what he does. He's now a music producer. Ooh. And he produces music out of his van and drives cross country.
Well, it's hard to top the Bum Bum song, so he's got an uphill battle. But I stole his shtick when I was in like middle school, so I guess what goes around comes around.
Well, these meditative methods are ways to ultimately be a better person, which I might add is you, because there's a young woman and an older woman who are out there in the world with your eternal thanks because you saved a husband and father this summer. You brought someone back to life.
That's heavy, bro. I didn't know you were going to bring that up. It was a crazy experience, and that really changed the whole color of my summer. I went back to Rhode Island, to my hometown. I had a bunch of weddings to go to, and I was staying in a friend's apartment because my lease in Vegas was done. And I just figured I was going to stick around and kind of reconnect with my roots a little bit. And I was shooting ball with one of my old friends, and he goes, yo, what's going on over there? And across the park, there was just this guy collapsed on the ground and a lady over him pushing on his chest. So I ran over there, and they called 911. She wasn't confident in her CPR skills, and I had been certified like a year or so ago. So I sat down and just started pumping on this guy. And it was intense, man. Like there was no life in his eyes. There was like little kids crying. It was heavy. And by the time the EMTs came, like once they were a couple feet away, I stepped off and I let them take over. And I heard somebody after about, I don't know, it felt like an eternity, but it was probably just a couple minutes. I heard them say that he had a pulse. And then they took him off. His wife came and picked up the kid because he was pushing his kid in a stroller. The whole thing was just so heavy, and I thought I was just going to shoot hoops that day. The fire chief called me, and they did this whole ceremony. In fact, and they gave me this little obelisk. They gave me this like crystal trophy thing. It's a life-saving award. I'm actually looking at it right now, and you could kill somebody with this thing. It's heavy and it's mad sharp. So if somebody breaks into my house, I'm going to use it to kill them to make up for the life that I saved. They called me on my birthday, no less. It was crazy. And I had a buddy who was connected to the town, like the town fire department. So I had him call somebody, and he actually confirmed that the dude walked out of the hospital before somebody was able to really tell me. And then I got this official call from the fire chief, and I was just like, I cannot believe this. It was, and it's just right place, right time. I'm not saying I'm like a hero or anything, but in those situations, just being calm and knowing what to do, that's all you can do. Because if we just sat there and did nothing in panic, that guy would definitely not
and there's a small chance that guy could have been the CEO of Atlantic Records, and you could have got a massive record deal.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of, the selfish side of me was hoping he was like independently wealthy and he was going to be like, "Hey, have anything you want, son."
This record, Book of Changes, was conceived, written, and recorded in isolation. You participate in quiet meditation on top of that. I need to know how this last year treated you. I don't know if you're an introvert by nature, if you're a superhero. Do you save people's lives on the daily?
First of all, I want to thank my telepathy, the weaponized mind trick. If everything you do is electronic, they'll always find it. Cyberpunk happens when the average finally get the same tech that runs the planet. Take a minute to listen, you'll hear the river spirit passing in the form of a human whose other form is a dragon. I saved you once from drowning and you never had to ask me. Just put the karma back in rotation, return to magic.
In every word he breathed was a meaning, in line with the subtle principles of things. If only they thought of it deeply. And thus, he retreated to Cold Mountain.
Book of Changes started. I reached out to Nav and we were interested in working together. I initially had a very rough concept based around something completely different. It was like a cultural criticism, Walter Benjamin kind of thing. And it ended up not really fitting. And Novelist has the stuff that he raps about, like we have a common interest in Eastern philosophy and Taoism. So the Book of Changes concept sort of naturally arose out of that. But the thing that really solidified the concept was my lease in Vegas had ended. So I hit the road again and I found an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere in the desert that was right outside a national forest, and it was cheaper than my apartment. So I spent about 6 weeks there, and I bugged out. I had no internet. I was daily just taking walks, meditating, interacting with wildlife. There was deer that would come right up to you and I could feed them. I mean, it was heaven on earth, honestly, because all I was doing was, getting my business done, working on music, and then just communing with nature in a way that I've always craved and that I try to do regularly, but couldn't do.
Okay, so that's kind of the jump off. I want to be clear here. I love Clear Soul Forces. I like Novelists. I think he's a bit corny with the martial arts stuff, but I think if you don't know this stuff, it might get lost in the sauce. I get the vibe where it's this project, and then it's like, oh, it's inspired by a collection of poems. These poems were written by a hermit of Chinese legend, based on the I Ching, and lyrical themes based on the Taoist wisdom. And when I listen, I have to reference hexagrams. Well, you don't think that's just a bit loaded?
I come from, I listen to a lot of prog rock. I come from the era of concept albums. And I always wanted to do a concept album. And working with a guy like Novelist, who is so focused on his craft and so focused on his subject matter, it was really an opportunity to create an album that felt cohesive instead of working with a rapper that changed subjects every 2 lines. That's what made the creative process between him and I so easy, was that he would just come back with verses. They were dope. They were cohesive. They were coherent. I didn't have to really guide or correct. And then I would be able to put the finishing touches on it and it would fit. And it was interesting when I was reading the I Ching, like I was just finding little parallels in his lyrics and then finding vibes that I felt embodied his lyrics. And then there would be, some sort of poetic aphorism associated with a hexagram. And then I would go out and record a stream or record some wind chimes to try to get some feeling of where I was and some feeling of to capture the feeling that he was portraying in his lyrics, and then just trying to make the album flow together in a way that I wanted. So this was the perfect opportunity for me to actually make a concept album based on something with a narrative, with a story, with everything tied together and glued together by a unified theme. So I was very excited. And it's like, you can read into it if you want, and you can find stuff. You can look into the hexagrams. You can enrich your experience of the album by looking into it. But I always just wanted it to be dope on its face. So if you don't give a shit, you can still just listen to a dope album.
Yeah, I was thinking, why not make an album around John Kennedy Toole instead?
Oh yeah, Confederacy of Dunces. That's that pretty much that explains the rap game in a nutshell right there. I would love to. And the thing is now, like, this fueled the fire for my next 2 beat tapes. I don't know when they're coming out, but everything now that I'm doing, I'm on this kind of unified theme trip where I want everything to be about something, whether it's instrumental or whether I'm working with somebody. And it's been fun. It's kind of given me a lot of confidence to wear my influences on my sleeve.
I see him and Mega Ran promoting a project called Maverick Hunters, and I see them doing vinyl campaigns. Sure. I see them hang out a lot more. And aside from tagging you, I don't see him talk much about you as a person. Mm-hmm. And I feel Dixon Hill, the producer, is still so untapped. Like, Novelist has a podcast, and I haven't seen you on it. And it seems like that would be a good opportunity to be candid and get to know you more.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I haven't approached him about it. Our relationship, we haven't met in person either. I mean, we connected over the phone, and we talked a few times, and then we exchanged music, and the relationship very much became about the music right away. So we were just I would send beats to him. He would send verses to me. And that was kind of that. When I'm working with somebody, I try to be professional first. Like, I don't need to be your friend. I want to make sure that we're achieving the task at hand. And then, we can get to know each other over that time. But I'm also very guarded when it comes to becoming overly familiar with somebody and making assumptions about what our relationship actually is. So maybe someday I will be on his podcast. I feel like we would gel and we would get along. I was supposed to go out to Detroit to see him, but as things do, as travel plans do during this era, it fell through. But someday. And I know Mega Ran is just he's all over the place. He's a really nice guy. So they've had more opportunities to connect. And I mean, I'm not a hard guy to get a hold of, but I'm also kind of a hard guy to get a hold of. So
okay, because this is coming from a perspective of maybe a consumer who's looking at this project and doesn't know you guys' relationship. He has a lot more people coming to the dance, and they don't know who you are other than produced by Dixon Beats or Dixon Hill Beats. They don't know who you are. And if you did all this work on the back end, how can I get people to know your talents? How do I get people to know that you're capable of more than just giving beats?
That's a good question. Part of it is how I put myself out there, and I try to control the narrative when it comes to everything that's about me. But also that there's this sort of inherent humility when it came to designing the album cover. I mean, I wanted the album cover to be about the artwork. And then on the back, in super tiny writing, it says lyrics by Novelist, music by Dixon Hill. The vinyl might have like a sticker on it with our names on it, but I really wanted it to just be this kind of mysterious, the artwork is what's drawing you in rather than the names. And as a result, Novelist has a bigger following than me just because he's been around longer and he really connects with his fan base. And I'm still building a fan base, and I'm still learning the game when it comes to building a fan base. So a lot of it might seem like one-sided, but I also attribute it to the fact that I'm still finding out how to let people know who I am. And this is great that you gave me a platform, because it's really the work that you do can get lost on people very easily. And a lot of critics that have reviewed the album so far, they're saying stuff that's literally technically wrong about the album. Like they said, a couple of songs use samples that are actually all original. And it's just kind of stuff that people will not notice unless you talk about it.
Right. Like if I take someone like Ian MacKaye, do you think he goes to bed every night thinking everyone appreciates all the work that he does? Or I think a lot of it gets lost.
He does get a lot of love because he's a legend, but it definitely gets lost because people it's hard to really quantify everything that went into making an album. And part of the fun of working on an album is the isolation. And that's why I was talking about when I was in that cabin, it was heaven on earth, because it was just me and the music, and nobody can really know what was going on in there. And it was magic for real. Like, it was the first time I really felt like everything was clicking and I was firing on all cylinders and my creative juices were just completely in my control. The double-edged sword is that nobody will ever really know that unless they talk to me. They weren't there. And I'm not going to sit there and Instagram live from my Unabomber shack in the middle of the desert. I'm just going to do my thing because I'm more about the music, more about making something cohesive. But it is nice to get the opportunity to be like, hey, by the way, I did all the artwork. I played all the instruments on four of the tracks. I went out and did field recordings for all the transitions. Like, that's real work, and that's real dedication that I think should come across. But sometimes it feels weird to just offer that information up to thin air. You don't know who's listening.
Yeah, because you mastered the sales pitch, the approach to selling your music to record shops. You broke it down in the last episode. Everything from talking to the right people, reading the room while being friendly, and by being direct to achieve the best results that you can. But Novelist is the extra factor. You can't control his publicist. You can't control how he wakes up and wants to promote the album. It's no longer just you. You had this transformative, life-changing experience that lent some of your best work to date, and then you hand it over to an artist that you respect. That has to be a learning process as well.
It definitely is, and it's at the heart of collaboration, where you want to let people be themselves. And Novelist was an artist that it was very easy for me to let him be himself, because him being himself from a lyrical perspective is great for me. He takes his craft seriously, and I don't have to, like I said before, I don't really have to coach or worry about him coming back with some crazy bullshit. One of the practical aspects of the concept was it just allowed him to be himself, and I wasn't putting him in a box that he wasn't comfortable with. And then that led to great verses. That led to a lot of great ideas, a lot of great back and forth. And then, in my opinion, and hopefully in a lot of other people's opinion very soon, it came out in a great album. But there's another side to it, that once the album is created and it's out there and it's in front of people, you have to work your magic to talk about it. And Nav has his story. Nav has his way of connecting with his fans, and I'm trying to figure out mine. And I'm learning a lot in that process. But part of the collaboration is you got to let people be themselves.
Well, a lot of people are going to argue what makes a good music producer. They're going to say your responsibilities to the artist first. There's something that artists intrinsically know about their music and their fan base, like you said, that neither the record company nor the producer really knows. But we have to meld into their alter ego and be comfortable with them. We have to be an extension of who they are. And once we really connect with them, we can make them comfortable so they can connect to their fan base and their work. So do you agree with that notion that you have to become an extension of that artist? If you took care of everything, then what meat on the bone is there left for Novelist?
Well, he took care of the lyrics and he nailed his takes. And that's what brings the album to life as well. Like, I will not slight that, or I will not downplay that contribution in any way. But one thing I will want to just make a distinction with is, a producer isn't always an artist themselves, but I am definitely a motherfucking artist. Like, I have to draw that line, because when you're collaborating with somebody as a producer, you might just be sitting back and using your technical knowledge to bring something out of them. But I'm putting myself into this music just as much as any MC would. So I see myself as a creator, as a collaborator, as a artist as well.
Hey, yo. Yo, check it. Hey, yo. A long time only grows minds. Solitude where he had more rhymes than molecules. Of course he did. His body a temple of midi-chlorians. He faced the trials, but they don't know what side of the force he is. Even the purest vessel can't escape genetics. A sharpened weapon, but heart failure could be his ending. Every hour he looking for a power to break the cycles. Hold the mic close. Had a nice flow since the zygote.
If you sit down and print, cut, and hand stamp J card inserts and tape business cards on the other side to a project, and maybe you don't get the response, interest, and feedback that you expect, you got to ask yourself, is this a process that I want to do over and over and over? But I think this meticulous attention to detail you actually enjoy.
That creative process has to be fulfilling. That comes down to all the stuff that you do for the album. And it could be stamping J cards, cutting inserts out, handing stuff out to people. That to me is all part of the creative process. And if I believe in the music that I'm making, it's not a chore. It's not hard to do. And that's the part that I really like. I mean, if in a perfect world, I would just be pressing my own vinyl and like tying them to weather balloons and just like letting them out into the world and seeing who finds it. This whole idea of getting into the business and getting distribution deals and putting stuff up on Bandcamp, it's good and it's a way for us to connect with people, but I like to be out there. I like to put the work in. I like to have some sort of other element that is drawing people to the music and also drawing me to people, because I want to connect with people as a human and as an artist.
Let's talk about that, because from my understanding, the I Ching, the book this project borrows some philosophy from, it's a symbolic language that can be used to describe feelings or huge thoughts that our human spoken language is too small to manage, right? So what would be a situation where you can apply the I Ching to?
Well, really, you can apply it to any situation. Essentially, it's a cosmological text that you can use to make moral decisions, personal decisions. The way it works is you inquire into the text, you take a look at a hexagram and read some of the poetic aphorisms in there. And the good thing about poetic aphorisms is that they're open to interpretation. So it's a little bit like horoscopes, except it's not written by a 13-year-old TikToker.
I heard it's reactionary. I heard like you can't read this text and get the girl to agree to go to the dance with you, or how to deal with your father not understanding you or something. It's something happens to you, and then this book allows you to interpret these situations and deal with it better. Or am I wrong here?
No, you're not wrong. You're inquiring into the text to make a decision or to guide decision making. Like, for example, I used it to create the track list. I hate making track lists and deciding the order of tracks. And this was one of the easiest albums to do it with, because I was just taking the songs and getting my general feel of the song and then aligning it with an element in the book and then reading the hexagram from those two elements. And then that'd be like, okay, that's track one. And then moving on. The book itself, I mean, the way the book is used is a very practical, mystical process. I mean, people do stock divination, where you're actually using random numbers to create these diagrams, and then that gives you the answer to the question that you want answered.
Sincerity and reverence. When finished, it brought you to tears. Maybe that's an example.
Well, yeah, I mean, novelist gave me that verse like a few days after MF Doom died. And he's got this line, swiping up the tears on my screen from Doom passing. And I don't know, man. If you're a hip hop fan and you weren't bummed out by MF Doom dying, then I don't know where you've been at. That beat too is one of the ones that's all original. So I played all the instruments on that, and that one was made, that was an intensely personal beat for me. So having him, one thing that made me emotional was that I made that beat in an emotional state. It reflects a very crystallized period in my life where I remember how I felt when I made that beat. And when he came back with his verses, it just fit perfectly for me. And to have somebody do justice to a beat that really meant a lot to me was an emotional experience, because I've made beats that I put my heart and soul into, and then the rapper comes back with some lines about sending dick pics. And I'm like, okay, please don't do that again.
The other day you reflected on all the work that went into this album and how much the process of it like fulfilled you. What boxes did this project check off for you? Not professionally, but personally, since we're on the subject.
Well, personally, it gave me an opportunity to really craft an album without having to scramble. In the case of Actus Reus, like there was a lot of missing pieces, and I sort of had to do the needful, so to speak, just to make it work. Whereas with Book of Changes, everything came to me in a timely fashion. Everything was on point. And I had all the raw materials to do exactly what I wanted to do. And that was a great feeling. Another thing that I brought out from the experience of the album was a confidence in my ability to just isolate myself and follow through on a concept. And I think convey it coherently. So I came away from it with a lot of confidence to continue my own projects and to continue high concept stuff. And then personally, just being out there in the woods, meditating, reflecting on life, I mean, it was just, that's the right way to work. And so much of my work previous to that there was so much urgency tied into it that didn't need to be there. Oh, I need to finish this beat. I need to finish this album. I need to finish this artwork for whatever reason. Sometimes there wasn't even a real reason. It was just my own urgency was injected into the situation. And this one was just, all right, we're going to go with the flow and it's going to come out naturally. And I think it shows.
Is there a chance that you can get the cabin, you get the peace and quiet, but you're in a creative rut, or that same peace and tranquility can't be duplicated? Are you afraid of that?
No, because I've done fine work in a super stressful situation as well. I mean, I think you just have to be able to adapt to your situation. But over time, as a creative, I think it's important to find what works for you and understand what obstacles you might be putting in your own way. And for me, getting out there, getting away from the internet, just really disconnecting, going off the grid, that helps me find out what obstacles I'm putting in front of myself, and just it makes it a lot easier for me to remove them. When you're connected to everything, it can be kind of hard to zoom out and realize when you're getting in your own way.
Because if I end this episode and you feel like there were things left unsaid about Book of Changes, I'll feel bad. So you have the floor.
I don't really know. I mean, I got the test pressings recently, and we're going to do a vinyl. I hope to do a special edition with some instrumentals on it. But that whole process, I mean, vinyl has been held up for a while. I heard like Adele's new album is holding up everybody's vinyl production.
Well, is this vinyl going to come out on like Koi Fish Orange or Cold Mountain Brown? You know what I mean?
Well, I wanted to do some kind of color for like the special edition, but at the end of the day, man, I just want to get the vinyl out. I want people to have a physical copy of it in their hands. I'm a physical copy kind of guy. And that's definitely going to come on the horizon. That's interesting that you mentioned Cold Mountain, because there's actually a poem that's attributed to Han Xin himself, and he was talking about the plight of the poet in his day. And this is ancient times, of course, but his first poems were discovered because he carved them into rocks, and they were discovered long after he died. And one thing that he wrote, he said, well, maybe instead of carving my poems into rocks, I should carve them into biscuits or lost dogs. Maybe people would pay more attention.
That's interesting.
And yeah, and I thought like, okay, that sort of represents the plight of the independent artist. This struggle to get people to pay attention, what medium you're going to choose, and how you want to have your voice be heard, and where people's attention is actually going.
So if I buy the special edition vinyl of this project, will it come with a rock with a novelist lyric on it?
Ooh, that's a great idea, actually. I'm going to have him carve them. I don't know. I mean, I love carving. I love doing woodwork and stuff like that, but it seems like a lot of work to carve some multi-syllable rhymes into a stone.
Yeah. Just an idea.
I think it's an excellent fucking idea.
Well, there you go, man. I think we covered everything, man. I appreciate your time for being here.
I appreciate you giving me a platform, and I hope that everything goes well for you from here on out, and I hope that we don't remain strangers. Really do appreciate talking to you and for you making time for me. So it really does mean a lot.
Bro, we don't need a publicist to get in touch. Holler at me anytime you want. You got my number.
And I'm always going through Texas. I mean, not always, but I go to Texas like at least once or twice a year. So it would be great to meet up.
You owe me some churros too. Don't forget.
I fucking do. That's for sure. Yo, my recipe is on point. It's only gotten better because you steal my car, you steal my deep fryer. You don't steal my desire.
I love it, man. Looking forward to it. I appreciate you, man.
All right. Thank you. You have a good day.